What's up, Packer fans? I'm Nariah Chapik, host of Portland Packers podcast, and training camp is just around the corner, less than a week away, and we got some things to talk about in this video. We're going to be discussing Jordan Love's contract that is upcoming, recapping the offseason, looking back at the NFL draft, and of course, let's get some ideas on what's going to happen in the training camp season or session, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Regardless, guys, it is time to pour ourselves another Packers podcast. All right, everyone. So things look a little bit different right now. If you are a familiar or a reoccurring fan of the channel, we have decided, by the way, this is Christian. We'll introduce him in a second. We have decided that this channel needs a little bit of a twist to it. So this all kind of came to me back when I did the Justin Jefferson video about 3-4 weeks ago, when I realized I did not want to get back into this whole podcasting just by myself, talking to a camera a little in the room. I've always thought that it would be more entertaining to have multiple opinions, have someone to bounce ideas off of, have more of a conversation. And Christian, who I have known for probably 10 years, would you say?
Yeah.
Has it been?
More than that, probably.
Has it been about 10 years? So I've known Christian for a while. He was an early fan of the Pour Another when I started that back in 2019. And in the background, he was always like I said, he's there to support me, but more so, you kind of always had an idea or wanted to do something like this yourself, correct?
Yeah, man. Back when you first started it up, I was super interested. I don't know if you remember, but I was throwing out ideas. I was tried to be very involved. It was a cool idea, and then over time developed a want to start something of my own. So this is a awesome opportunity.
And, well, I'm glad to have you. First off, I reached out to you after that Jefferson video, and I finally put, we kind of went back and forth. You were thinking about starting your own channel. I was like, I kind of would like you to make an appearance. And I just kind of hit, let's just do this, right? I didn't want to put in all the homework that I was doing, but I just wanted to sit down, chat. Let's talk Packers for 45 minutes to an hour once a week, recap some of the news. And your story is a little bit similar to mine. We did a test run just the other night. Your story is a little bit similar to mine in the fact that a lot of people kind of come to us for Packer knowledge, for insights and whatnot. And I respect what your opinions are. But I guess let's as we kind of weave our way through this and get you into the introduction, I guess, anything particular that you want people to know about you, Christian?
Not anything in particular. You threw me off here. I wasn't expecting that question.
That wasn't on the script.
Like you said, my whole reasoning for wanting to do something like this was because I kept finding that at work with friends and stuff like that, I had a lot of people coming to me whenever some major Packer news came out, like back when the Aaron Rodgers drama was happening. I had to get text messages. People at work would come to me, hey, what'd you think of what Rodgers said? Or what'd you think of this draft pick or whatever? So my thought was, obviously, people value my opinion about the Packers because they know I love the Packers and I follow them avidly. So I figured, why not just turn these conversations into a podcast? Because I can sit here and talk about the Packers for hours. If someone gets me going, I will just keep talking until they don't want to talk about the Packers anymore. So figured, why not put it in a podcast so then everyone else can be involved in that conversation.
I think what's going to be fun about this is, I think there's going to be probably more things that we agree on than that we disagree on, but it's maybe you could kind of maybe cement a foundation of maybe two people that have a strong opinion about something and why we feel this way, or you get to kind of see the contradicting aspects of why we think one thing or the other could be, how it's going to be or why we think it's going to be. And then we can, save receipts on each other. And speaking of which, you know where I'm going with this. So for those of you that may have followed the channel back in 2019 during the NFL draft, I had a rather, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? disappointing reaction when the Packers drafted Jordan Love in the 2020 NFL draft. Did you think Jordan Love was going to be a good quarterback at all, Christian?
I mean, I had a feeling. I had a feeling. No, my reaction to Jordan Love being drafted by the Packers in the first round in 2020 was probably a lot different than most people. So there's a little bit of a backstory to that. So I was involved in a dynasty fantasy football league that was crazy involved. So we didn't only draft NFL players, we drafted college players. We called it a Devy draft. So basically what you do is and it didn't matter freshman through senior, you could draft any college player. You don't start them, they don't earn you any points, but basically you draft them ahead of time so that when they are drafted into the NFL, they're automatically on your team. So they get taken out of that rookie draft that you do every year for Dynasty. So back in 2020, before the Packers drafted Jordan Love, I drafted Jordan Love in that Devy draft. So I had done some research on him. I liked what I saw. I liked what I was reading from scouts. A lot of them described him as a raw talent, someone who needed to sit and learn and develop. And so when the Packers drafted him, I was ecstatic. I thought it was an awesome pick because, one, I liked him as a player. Two, we were starting the Rodgers drama where I was not quite to this point yet, but it was starting to get to the point where I was like, okay, I'm tired of the drama. It might be time to start thinking about moving on from Aaron Rodgers. So the pick was super exciting to me. And like you talked about, I've got the receipts. I had my buddy who ran that league. I had him send me the screenshots of that draft that we did to show that I picked him. And then I got a picture of the Jordan Love jersey I bought in 2020 when he was drafted. And I wrote a blog for a little while, so I've got some blog posts that I talked about my thoughts on the pick. And then also when he started a couple times when Rodgers was hurt, I got some stuff out there about my thoughts on Jordan Love even back then. So yeah, I've been a huge Jordan Love proponent for a long time.
Well, and that's the thing, like leading up to the draft, you were sending me text messages, Jordan Love. They need to take Jordan Love. And I was not there, right? I think we were NFC Championship game that previous season. Like we had a good foundation of players on the team. And looking at Rodgers, he's heading into he was probably heading into 36, 37 around that point. And it was just like, let's get another good weapon or something on the defense or just something that other than a quarterback. Let's just go over the hump. Let's get one more Super Bowl. And then we can start thinking about quarterback. And I'll be the second to admit, or maybe the first to admit, that I'm glad they did it. I mean, I would have liked a Super Bowl. I guess we'll never know maybe who they would have drafted or what the case may be. That could be a whole topic for another time. But looking at where we are now heading into the 2024 season, we couldn't be happier about what the future looks like for the Packers. At least I think both you and I would agree. It's bright. It's very bright having him on the team.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Last year, his first season starting, I was excited, but hesitant to get overexcited, right? Because we really hadn't seen him in full action. It was a young team, but by playoffs, it was one of my favorite Packer seasons because of my hopes for Jordan Love were kind of coming to fruition. Now, obviously that has to continue, but last year was very promising. And look at the team that we got. It's pretty much the same plus some huge additions that I think are going to make a big difference. And we were so close last year where no one else thought, no one expected the Packers to be in that position. So it's exciting to see where they go.
4 minutes left in that 49ers game.
Yeah.
4 minutes left. We were up 4 minutes left. So on that topic, let's just get into it. I mean, it is, like I said, in the intro part of this video, players started reporting to Green Bay today. Jordan Love was there reporting to camp today. All throughout the summer, we had Brian Gutekunst going on record saying by training camp he wanted to get a contract extension done with Jordan Love. Here we are, first day of actual practice is Monday, July 22nd, and we still don't have ourselves a contract extension. I'm going to ask this question just because it's in the bullet points, but should Jordan Love get an extension? And if so, why should Jordan Love get an extension?
Yeah, I mean, I think he should get an extension. Obviously, I mean, as we just went over, I've been a huge Jordan Love proponent. I think he should be paid. I think they should extend him.
Did he
I
show
think,
enough?
well, so that's what I was gonna go through. So like my personal feelings aside, I think the Packers are in a really tough position because of the limited sample size. So last year was his first year starting. Before that, he had, a few games where he filled in, and he played in my opinion played fairly well in those games he filled in. But last season, the season really started out, I mean, it started out rough, right? I was super excited and it was rough, but I didn't give up, right? I was like, well, they're young. It's a learning season. It's a building year for them. But as time went on, obviously it turned into what it did, and they saw the best possible outcome with Jordan Love. So last year they saw kind of both sides of things. So it's such a limited sample size for the Packers to go off of. I feel like it's really hard for them to give him all the money. Like, I mean, they're not going to make him one of the top paid quarterbacks in the league. But on the other hand, he brought them that far into the playoffs. How can they, I mean, they obviously love the guy. They have high hopes for him. If they want him to stick around, they got to pay him.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, last season was all the emotions. They did start out. They were 2-1. They had that comeback game against the Saints, and I remember at that moment. I mean, week 1 we beat the Bears, and I was like, okay, that's good. Here we go. Things are back.
Nothing
this is just
new.
like what we're used to. We beat the Bears. All is well. Exactly. All is well in the world. Gets that comeback victory against the Saints in week 2. And I didn't have a podcast rolling or anything back then, but I posted on social media. Oh my gosh, the Packers have done it again. It only took 3 weeks for me to be like, okay, somehow we found the third straight franchise quarterback. And then it got a little bit dicey there. I will admit that there were some games in late October, maybe, early November, where I love the Packers. Clearly, I'm spending time doing this, but I was not totally invested into some of those games. I had them on in the background. I was like, oh, this is so hard to watch. Thanksgiving rolls around. We're all with our families. Some other football team shows up on that day. And ever since that game, it just kind of took off, right? He goes on 9 straight games. He puts up some ridiculous stats. I don't know if it's 19 interceptions or 19 touchdowns and 1 interception, just some stupid, crazy statistic. I should have that stuff, but I don't have it in front of me. And he goes into Dallas, wins a playoff game, almost beats the number 1 seed on the road. Yeah, I'm on the same train. We're both on the same page on this one, right? They need to sign him to a contract extension. It sounds like it's going to happen. They kind of have to. I mean, this quarterback market has had a little bit of a boom here over the last few months. And on my side here, there are 5 quarterbacks right now making more than $50 million a year. Joe Burrow at 55, Jared Goff at 53, Justin Herbert at 52, Lamar at 52, and Jalen Hurts at 51. Does Jordan Love crack the $50 million a year salary on his contract extension?
I don't think so. So one thing that I looked at with, because I looked at the top quarterback contracts as well, but the other thing I looked at was, so PFF ranks Jordan Love as QB 11, right? So they have him as the 11th QB from 1 to 32 or however many they rank. They have him at number 11, above guys like Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is at number 12. Jared Goff is number 16 on PFF. I mean, obviously, I agree that Jordan Love is better than Trevor Lawrence, but I feel like he fits.
I don't have this list in front of me. Who do you have at 10? Kind of go. Let's just. Who's number 10 on that list?
10 is CJ Stroud. I don't have the full list.
Okay.
CJ Stroud's right above Jordan Love, and then you got Trevor Lawrence.
I would put them on a similar playing field right now. I mean, CJ Stroud had an incredible rookie season.
Yep.
I mean, So I guess taking PFF out of the equation, where is he? You see him as a top 5 quarterback, being number 5? Do you see him as a top 10 quarterback after his small sample size, all of it factored in?
Yeah, I feel like he can land in the top 10 for sure. I mean, obviously the hope is top 5, top quarterback in the league, right? I think if he plays to his full potential, I think he can be in that category. But trying to be realistic, I think top 10 is attainable for sure for
Be
Jordan Love.
realistic.
No, don't need to be realistic here.
No, I mean you should be. I mean, I suppose we should be. Okay, what about by the end of the season? Do you think he'll still be a top 10, or do you think he'll be a top 5 by the end of the season? My
I
vote is he's going to have a hell of a year. I've seen this guy has been practicing with and training with some talent out there. He is like I've just watched so much YouTube content on this guy where he is so locked in and focused, and he's really taken the mantle of what it means to be the face of a franchise. I think he still has a lot to prove, and he knows he has a lot to prove. He knows that the Packers are going to pay him a pretty big chunk of money, and I mean, I think he's going to have an outstanding season, and I think more people. I mean, if you take that 9-week sample size and you stretch that out for an entire season, if he can duplicate it, which it's all a bunch of ifs, but if he can duplicate that, he becomes a top 5 quarterback real quick.
Yeah, if he duplicates what he did in that stretch there, I mean, he's the top quarterback in the league. He was the best on 3rd and 4th down in the league last season, and that was with the rough games, right? So I mean, if he puts up that kind of performance all season long, I mean, it's not out of the question that he's top top 5, top 3. He's up there with the Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. He's right in that wheelhouse. So it's just a matter of being able to perform at that level and win. That's the thing.
So, this is probably the last opportunity. I mean, we could wake up before I even get this thing posted to YouTube, and tomorrow morning, and there's some silly announcement. Not silly, it'd be a great announcement that he signs his contract. So this is kind of our last chance to maybe put our predictions out there, what kind of contract that we see him having. I see him over $50 million a year. I really do. Only because if the Packers choose to, well, I don't think they're going to wait, but I think if they pay him any less than that, I just don't know how you can. I don't know. I don't know how you can pay him less than $50 million a year. He has a playoff win underneath his belt. He, like I said, pushed San Francisco to the limits, and he showed so much growth, and they know what they have in him. I think that's the biggest thing that kind of gets forgot about is the Packers have seen this guy develop for 3 seasons behind Rodgers. They know better than we do, really, where this ceiling might be than what we saw just on the tape from the games last season. But I think you got to give him. I'm seeing at least 4, if not 5, and I'm seeing somewhere around like 180 to 220, somewhere in there. So probably like a 4-year, 200,000, $200 million deal. I'm seeing somewhere around that $50 to $52 million a year. That's my prediction. I could be wrong. I don't know how much is going to be guaranteed, but they got a young roster around them. They have the cap room. I think now's the time where you kind of load up, you lock them in for 4 or 5 years, and let's see what we can do before we have to worry about a Dobbs contract, a Reed contract, a Watson contract, and kind of let it all come together at that point.
Yeah, I can for sure see that too. I mean, I definitely don't follow contracts, and I'm not good at how it all works, but I mean that what you explained sounds very reasonable to me. I don't disagree with any of that. I was just kind of looking at, where he sits as far as compared to other quarterbacks in performance rankings, and then where he sits or where those other quarterbacks are paid right now. I'm sure, and honestly, some of them probably got paid more than they should have. So
I mean,
it's tough to.
Justin Herbert is $52.5 million a year. Like I would rank Jordan Love.
Yeah.
I would take Jordan Love before I'd stick with that one, right?
Yeah.
Jared Goff, $53 million a year. I would take Jordan Love. And I'm not just talking like I get Jared Goff has more seasons, and what am I trying to say? Like I get that they're kind of making that final push. That's more of like a late in the career type of contract where here's your last huge sum of money, go get it sort of a thing. But if I'm just looking at, the next 2-3 seasons, I need a quarterback, I would take Jordan Love over Jared Goff. Joe Burrow went to the Super Bowl. I mean, he deserves probably what he's getting paid, right? Lamar Jackson, very talented, $52 million. I would not rank him above there. Jalen Hurts, I'm not sold on Jalen Hurts whatsoever. I can't wait till we beat them in week 1. But, there's your 5 guys, right? And I would say he's in the field or in the talking space of a lot of those guys. He's got to be. I mean, when I first started thinking about how I wanted to do a contract video on Jordan Love, I was thinking, is he going to be the first $60 million contract? I tamed myself quite a bit. I went down to 55 as my ceiling. I think 55 is the ceiling, and I think 50 is the minimum. It's going to fall somewhere in there, and I'd be surprised if it's anything less than 50.
Yeah, and in this day and age with these contracts just keep stepping up further and further and further, and the guys that are due the contracts want to be paid that top money if they're performing, if they're the starter. So it's, I mean, if it wasn't going to be now, it's going to be, reworking the contract in the future. So no, why not just pay him now?
Yeah. So 4 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years? He's getting a 10-year, 100 or $1 billion contract. Is that what you're saying?
Let's start talking about like baseball contracts.
Yeah, right. Yeah, let's do it.
Paying him after he's retired.
So we'll get off the Jordan Love topic. I mean, we're coming in, like I said, numerous times now. We're a week ahead of training camp. A lot of things happened this offseason. The Packers had a very busy offseason. Joe Barry is gone. In comes Jeff Hafley. Aaron Jones is gone. In comes Josh Jacobs. David Bakhtiari is gone. In comes Xavier McKinney, not to play offensive guard or tackle, but to play some defense. What's your biggest headline from the offseason? What got you, kind of up and ready and excited based off of all the
Josh Jacobs signing was a surprise to me, and I was very excited about it. A lot of people were upset with the way, they brought Josh Jacobs in, and then it was kind of obvious that Aaron Jones was out. I loved Aaron Jones. He was a awesome running back for us. His story is awesome. He was a great player in the locker room, but he was injured quite a bit. So, in my opinion, the Josh Jacobs for Aaron Jones is an upgrade.
I would agree. There was like a 1 hour window there where we thought we had both of them.
Sure,
and,
yeah.
Like the sun was shining extra bright in that hour. I had an extra hop in my step. It would have been probably the best dual running back threat in the NFL with both those guys back there. But yes, reality set in. They had to let Aaron Jones go. He goes to the Minnesota Vikings. That's kind of like the next. That's like Packers 2.0. These last 20 years is Packers leave and they go to the Vikings. So
yeah,
that was a shock for sure. For me, I mean, it's not a player. I love the Xavier McKinney signing. I mean, he was hands down the best available free agent position to go out there and grab. They got him. That's awesome. I like the Josh Jacobs sign. I'm on the Hafley train. I think if you were anything like me last season, especially that Carolina Panthers game right around, I think it was Christmas or Christmas Eve. I mean, I'm done. And this is a problem that us as Packer fans, this isn't new. We had the Mike Pettin days, and we had, who was before him? Who was that?
Honest, I don't remember either.
Packers guy? Dang it. It's not new for us.
Right. I agree with you 100%. It's always an issue. We have great games on defense, and then the next game, it's like, what are they even doing?
Some teams will say, man, if we only had a quarterback, we would have won so many Super Bowls. Vikings, Bears, whatever. But I think for us, it was always that defense. And the Packers have continued to draft and draft and draft. That's how many seasons have they taken a defensive player in the first round of the draft, right? How many years? So for me, there was a lot of big names some out there floating around for defensive coordinator. I'm so glad we're done with the Joe Barry stages. He had a really close relationship with Matt LaFleur. I know that was a tough decision for Matt to have to make to kind of cut those ties, but it needed to be done. And, he picks up this head coach from Boston College, comes in, he's going to get a first shot, as a defensive coordinator in the NFL. And I'm loving everything that I'm hearing so far. The players are excited. He's got more of an aggressive, go at the ball, play your fastest sort of mentality. We're going to make plays. It's kind of a high risk, high reward sort of a defense from the sounds of it. It seems like the players are bought into it. And that has to be the thing that I'm most looking forward to seeing is what this defense could potentially turn into. Because that defense is littered with so much talent on that side of the ball that if they're playing to the best of their abilities, we might not have to complain about the defense this upcoming season.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest thing I'm going to be watching for is the run defense. It seems that is always the issue for the Packers. They can't stop the run. Our pass defense has been pretty solid for a while now with Jair and some of the cornerbacks and safeties that we've had in the last few years. So that'll be a big thing for me is if they can stop the run, because that's how teams ate up the defense is they just run the ball. They'd pound the rock. So run defense is a big thing. And I was doing a little digging into the new D coordinator. So he actually moved from the NFL to college. So he wasn't a defensive coordinator, but he was on some staffs before. So he's been in the NFL game before. This is just his first opportunity as a D coordinator, which will be exciting. He has a great record coming from college. I think it was over the last 3 years, Boston College was first, and fifth in, gosh, I can't remember what defensive stat they
You're
ranked
trying to name
there.
the conference?
What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were trying to name the conference that Boston College is in. Do you know the conference? Is it ACC? I have no idea. I don't follow college football at all.
I don't follow it that closely either. It might be ACC. I don't think so. I don't remember what conference they're in. But no, it was in all FBS.
I will say.
It was in all FBS.
Okay.
They had I can't remember. I can't remember if it was total yards or what it was, but they were ranked 1, 1, and 5 over the last 3 years, which is saying something, all of college football. So.
Well, and they had some interviews with him shortly after his departure, and a lot of that NIL stuff that he has to deal with. I mean, Boston College is not. You get yourself a freshman or a sophomore that has shown a lot of potential. They're gone. The transfer portal's there. They're gone. It's really hard unless you're at some of those big conference schools to retain talent and find success. And I think from interviews that I had listened to and some comments from him, it was just kind of draining. He wanted to get back to just more of, it was so much recruiting and so much of that not football crap that he had to put up with that stressed him out, that he could come to a town like Green Bay where, quite frankly, it has like a college football atmosphere, and just focus on the game of football and getting his players to enjoy what they do and play their best and just have fun, because really it's a kid's game. You hear it all the time, but it's a kid's game, and he just wanted to get back to that. I might be getting more knowledgeable on college football, though. I will say that I got the new NCAA football the other day, and I got drafted by the Central Michigan Chippewas, and I'm one hell of a running back. I might not look like it on the screen right now, but I'm averaging like 200 yards a game, 3
Solid.
touchdowns. It's not that big of a deal, but I might get some college football knowledge just from playing that video game. I just want to throw that out there real quick.
I remember back when I was in college, and the last NCAA football game that they made before this one, I remember me and my roommate played that a lot. And I remember I did the whole create a player thing, and I did a running back as well. And I went to Wisconsin.
Just give me the ball.
I remember first game of the season in the dynasty or whatever, we were playing like Bowling Green or something like that. And my running back guy had like 500 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns or something like that. Every play was.
I don't know why it's fun. It doesn't require a lot of thought. Just give me the ball, and I'm going to go to the end zone, and I just get a kick out of it every time. And it's like dopamine just fires off. A lot of fun.
Yes.
It's back. This isn't an endorsement for it, but it's back.
Great way to learn college football, though.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing a whole bunch of read option plays, and I'm like, we don't need any options. I am the running back one. Just give me the ball. I'll get you the points. We're going to win the national championship.
I love that stuff though. Read option. We play. That's what my high school football team, the offense we ran. So I love we ran the wishbone, triple option every play.
Yeah. See, if it doesn't get me the ball though, I don't want to do it. So, anything else I'm missing from the off season? I mean, it was a huge off season. Anything? I mean, I guess we could rope OTAs in there. That comes a little bit later, but if there's no better time to talk about off season OTAs. God, I mean, could you ask for a better turnout when it comes to player participation and the energy and the vibes? There was a lot of talk late in the season. Jair goes out in the field when he's not supposed to, leads to a suspension. There were some talks, obviously he's locked into contract, but does Jair want to even play for the Packers? I think Joe Barry had a lot to do with that. Is he going to stick around? That Xavier McKinney signing, the Jeff Hafley signing, I think did a lot to say, okay, I've spent my whole career here. This is kind of where I want to be. And I think it wasn't more evident than the appearances at OTAs. These are guys that, Jair skipped OTAs last year and paid a fine, and everyone was there showing up, doing the work. It was pretty awesome to see. Just really seemed really hungry and focused heading into the summer months before heading into training camp. Any thoughts, opinions on kind of what you saw from the OTA months or weeks that happened?
You pretty much said everything that I was going to say. The turnout was great. Jair was a big. His attendance was something that I noticed with all the media attention and stuff like that. Looks like him and Xavier McKinney looks like they're pretty tight, and I think that, like you said, kind of reined in Jair, brought him back to the team. And that's another thing with Matt LaFleur and what he's done with this Packer team over the years. I feel like when I watch locker room speeches, when I watch post-game interviews and stuff like that, Matt LaFleur really preaches the team aspect of it, and they're in it together, and they're a brotherhood. And you don't see that from every NFL team, because it's really what football is about. It's about brotherhood and camaraderie. And when you get to the NFL level, I feel like some of that gets lost. So I'm excited to see more of that from the Packers. And with how young this team is, what better way to build this team together, grow together. So it's very good to see them all at OTAs, working hard, building that camaraderie and that brotherhood.
Well, that leads me to think back to last season. Like Matt LaFleur, you can give praise to Jordan Love figuring out how to play football come Thanksgiving, but Matt LaFleur deserves so much credit for being able to tackle and coach that adversity that he had to go through. He had to deal with an entire defense that had essentially given up on their defensive coordinator late in the season and motivate them to go out there and try to play their best football. What he's been able to do with Jordan Love's mindset and having that rocky start and keeping him one day at a time, the next pass, have that goldfish mentality. Yeah, it's evident that we found ourselves a great coach. I was a huge fan of the LaFleur signing. We don't need to get into that. We got ourselves a really good coach. We got ourselves a really good up-and-coming quarterback. The future is definitely bright, and yeah, the players want to be there. They want to play. They want to get better. They sense that there's something special brewing within the locker room and within Green Bay, and it's just clear as day when everyone just shows up. They know that they're knocking on something's door, and it could possibly be a Super Bowl. We'll get to season predictions one of these episodes. So outside of the discussion of the offseason part, the last probably thing to get into the offseason would be the draft. Now, Christian, you're more into the draft than I've ever even tried to get into. Like I said, I don't follow college football. You must have enough of a pulse on it to be able to keep up with who would be a good draft pick and whatnot. So Packers get 11 total picks out of the 2024 draft. I have the whole list of all the players. I think if we're giving grades, maybe we'll put grades on it at the end of it. But what are your overall thoughts of how the Packers came away from the draft? Did we get better? I mean, did we?
Well, so if you remember, you texted me on opening night of the draft and asked what dream pick, who would I take in the first round? And I honestly was kind of at a loss. Thinking about the Packers roster, there was not, definitely on offense, there was not a position where I felt that there was a first-round draft pick talent needed. every position, quarterback, wide receiver, running back, tight end. There wasn't really any spot on the offense other than possibly offensive line, because you can never have enough good offensive linemen. But that was the only position on offense that I felt like we could use a first round talent. The other position that I told you I thought we needed was a linebacker position, and they addressed both of those things in the first and second round. Offensive line in the first, linebacker in the second. Both of those guys I think contribute right away. The offensive lineman they took, Jordan Morgan, he's already working in with the first team. He was working in with the first team in OTAs. And I really like what the Packers last season did with their offensive line, which I hadn't really seen before, but they just rotated guys in and out. Like, it didn't matter if they were hurt or not. They just rotated guys in and out. And what better way to keep fresh guys and help prevent injury? If you got guys that are interchangeable, why not swap them out on different plays, different drives? I think it was a great way to do things. And Jordan Morgan just adds to that. Linebacker they took in the second round, Edgerrin Cooper.
That's it.
Right?
Texas A&M.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't watched a lot of film, but from what I've read, he's very similar to Quay Walker. And I think the Packers see him and Quay Walker as interchangeable. Say what you want about Quay Walker. I think he's a great player. He has some maturing to do still. Hopefully that maturity comes this year. But adding Edgerrin Cooper, who is very similar in his size, speed, and playing style to Quay Walker, I think it's going to be great to have that interchangeability with them, or have them both on the field at the same time. So start those first two rounds of the draft, I think that the Packers nailed it, which is uncommon for me to say with a Packers draft.
Yeah, I mean, usually we come away with it going, we're scratching our heads. If you're me in 2020, you're drinking at 9 a.m. versus, just I didn't think I stopped drinking when they drafted Jordan Love. It was so frustrating. But that aside, night 2 was, they nailed it. Like, we talked about Edgerrin Cooper. I agree everything you're saying. I think he's going to pair up really nice opposite side of Quay Walker. And maybe even just a rotational player if they got depth kind of on that whole defensive line, defensive kind of backfield there. But then you add in Javon Bullard, safety from Georgia. They took him right after Cooper. And this guy has me equally as excited to be learning from Xavier McKinney. He shows a lot of skill set. I think, it's so hard. The draft seems like it was years ago, even though it was only a few months ago. But he was one of the top safeties available still on the board, or just in the entire draft. And the Packers were able to snatch him up in the third round, or excuse me, late in the second round. And then in their third round, they go and grab a running back in Marshawn Lloyd. I mean, I think Jordan Morgan is going to be a work in progress. I think he has the skill set. Yes, he's going to get plenty of opportunities this next 4 weeks to play with the ones, and they're going to move him into a couple different positions and see, where he best fits maybe as a rookie. But I think the most important thing is that he does not need to start. He doesn't need to come in this first season and be a contributor. Yes, we lost David Bakhtiari, but we didn't have him all last season, and we managed to find a way regardless. Jordan Love had time in the backfield. So I like the future of Morgan. I'm not entirely sold that he's going to be a day one impact player, but I do think that you're looking at Cooper, Bullard, and Lloyd. They're all going to get their fair share of reps throughout the season. And I think they absolutely crush those first 2 days. Later in the draft, I mean, I don't think we need to run through everyone. Maybe next spring when the draft's actually happening, we can do a more in-depth of the draft side of it. Is there anyone else that sticks out maybe on that list that caught your eye, or that you might be excited for an upside or a future?
I like Marshawn Lloyd a lot. I know you touched on him a little bit, but he just looks, I mean, you have every single picture, every single video I see of him, he just looks angry. He just looks mad at the world,
yeah, I like angry.
which is what I want to see in a running back. So I think obviously we got Josh Jacobs, we got AJ Dillon, who is kind of the veteran guy now for that running back group right now. But yeah, Marshawn Lloyd, I think, gets worked in a little bit, and that's exciting to see too. It's always fun seeing rookie running backs because who knows, he can blow up into the next big thing. The other draft pick that stands out to me, and maybe it was just the hype that came along with it, but Kalen King out of Penn State was taken in the 7th round.
Yeah.
Nickel corner, or he played safety, some too, I believe, or maybe that was Bullard. Maybe I'm thinking of Bullard. But yeah, he came out of the 7th round. Everything I was reading, the Packers were surprised that he dropped that far. So potentially we came away with a steal on that one. And obviously, time will tell if he performs to the level that he talks. But that was kind of an exciting one too, because he dropped to us, and the Packers seemed excited that he dropped that far to them. So it'll be interesting to see if he turns into someone who works in, or with injuries or something, ends up starting at some point.
It's tough to say. The Packers have depth at that cornerback position, and we'll get into what later these next couple weeks, kind of how we see these rosters starting to take shape, and how many positions or how many players you're going to keep at these positions. That cornerback room in particular, with Eric Stokes coming back, Jaws back, you're looking at Ballantyne and Ballantyne, who both are those players like King that kind of came out of nowhere throughout, training camp and preseason last year. I mean, their injuries happen at that position. We see that injuries can clearly happen at that position. We saw it last season. I mean, I think for sure, he's an exciting pick to keep an eye on here throughout the next couple weeks and see, from what I understand, he got kind of a raw end of a deal with a different coaching staff in his final year. And had he entered the draft in 2023, there's no way that, all the pundits are saying there's no way that he falls to the 7th round. He's probably more of a 2nd, 3rd, 4th round guy, maybe as high as the 2nd, but he had a lot more upside. Decided to stick out his college career, and everything just kind of went wonky. And I think that's what part of the reason why he fell as far as he did. But yeah, I think, it sounds like he has the skill set, he has the talent. He's going to be able to learn from some of, one of the best cornerbacks in the league and that coaching staff. Ton of upside there. On the flip side, I would look at Michael Pratt too. This is a quarterback that we took also in the 7th round. Are the Packers really going to keep 3 quarterbacks on this roster by the end of training camp? Do you think that's possible?
No, I don't think so.
There's 2, right?
I think Pratt comes in as competition for the backup role with Clifford, and I think they battle it out for the backup spot. But I don't think they keep all 3.
It's hard to admit. They got 11 picks. You can call it a throwaway pick if you want to. It's hard to imagine that they use one of their draft picks for someone that isn't going to make the roster.
Sure.
This isn't just like a Michael Pratt thing. This is just kind of how I've always viewed this. It's almost a lock to me, unless they just turn out to be absolutely dog water in training camp, that these players are going to find their way somewhere onto the roster. Maybe I'd say 9 out of the 11 should make it on the roster. The rest will be on the practice squad.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be tough. Clifford looked good last preseason. I know there were just as many moments throughout that preseason where, I'm watching those games with my dad and we're looking at each other and we're like, geez, if Love doesn't turn out, maybe this Clifford guy might not be that bad. It's preseason. You definitely have to temper your expectations. It's a different type of player out there on the field for sure. That's going to be, if we want to transition into this, that's going to be one of those matchups, one of those competitions that I'm probably most excited to see kind of pan out throughout the next couple of weeks. We have about, maybe 10 minutes or so left. Are there certain things that you're got your eyes on when you're looking at the next couple of weeks? Any competition? I just kind of throw some shit out there because I like to throw in one curse word each podcast. I just kind of sneak it in somewhere. AJ Dillon, is he sticking around? That's something that I'm curious on. How many wide receivers are we ultimately going to keep? And then I'm going to keep my dark horse, my hot take for the very end. Is there anything that you really got your eyes on here in training camp?
Yeah, I think you kind of already touched on what I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be watching that running back core to see. I think AJ Dillon sticks around. He loves Green Bay. He loves the Packers. Obviously he may leave at some point if they're, not willing to re-sign him, but I'm really glad that he came back. And I'm seeing things out of OTAs, Josh Jacobs saying that AJ Dillon kind of is their mentor, him and Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd, because AJ Dillon's been there for a few years. He knows the playbook, and he's kind of helping these new guys along that are probably going to play more than Dylan himself. So I think he sticks around, but it'll be interesting to see how LaFleur uses that running back room, because you got 3 guys that can do it. AJ Dillon, I think he lost some weight coming out of the offseason, and I think that's a really good thing. So we may see him carry the ball more behind Josh Jacobs, obviously, but we may see him carry the ball more. So I'm interested to see how many touches these guys get. Are they going to really mix them in? Is Josh Jacobs going to be the bell cow and getting majority of the snaps? That'll be interesting to see. A wide receiver, that's another interesting position in training camp, because everyone's asking that question: do the Packers really have a number 1 wide receiver? I don't know that they do, and I don't know that that's a bad thing. If Jordan Love can
You
trust
really want
these
to talk
guys,
about this topic. You are hot on the wide receiver 1 topic, which I agree. But is there a question of anyone in that wide receiver core that, that I think we know what we got there, right? We have Watson, we have Dobbs, we have Reed, we have Heath, we have, what else we got? I know I'm forgetting one. Bo Melton, so we're up to 5. Dontavian Wicks, we're up to 6. I don't know if they keep 7. It's tough to say.
Well, and we're talking path catchers here. You got 2 tight ends that are solid path catchers as well. No, I don't want to name a number 1 Packers wide receiver. That's not my point. I'm not saying like we need to say this guy's the number 1 wide receiver. My point is, I don't think they do have a number 1, and I think it's a great thing. I think that Jordan Love can trust every single one of these guys, and you're going to see Christian Watson have stellar games. He's going to be leading the team in receiving yards one week. Next week it may be Reed. The next week it may be Musgrave. I think it's a great thing that they have the receiving core that they do. It gives Jordan Love so many tools. Not to mention the running backs again. I think all 3 of them can be pass catching running backs. So that just adds even more places for Love to go with the ball. So I think it's a good thing. That's just been a big question out there is, if you look at it from like a fantasy football perspective, fantasy football players are looking at the Packers wide receiver core, not sure who to take, because it could be a different receiver each week.
You don't know who's going to have the game.
Right. Which in fantasy football, that's not a good thing. You maybe want to stay away from the Packers wide receiver core in fantasy football. For real life football, for the Packers themselves, I think it's a great thing.
Have you watched that receiver show on Netflix?
I haven't yet. I definitely will, though. I'm very interested. Did you watch Quarterback?
I did watch Quarterbacks. That was good. I'm wondering, we could really be going off topic here, but Peyton Manning was seen at Lambeau over the off season. I would love like a Jordan Love quarterbacks, like especially if it's from last season.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows when they filmed this crap, but if they had last season's footage of everything that he went through and the adversity and just a crazy finish, that would be, oh man, that'd be so good. I don't know if that's happening. Maybe it's going to be this upcoming season. On the receivers show, though, George Kittle, I hate that they had 2 49ers wide receivers as kind of of the 5 cast of
Debo's the other one, right?
Yep. Then you had Justin Jefferson, you had St. Brown from Detroit, and then Devontae Adams, right? It's well put together. I really like George Kittle. That's probably my biggest takeaway from the show. The guy is just a fun dude, easy going, loves the game of football, and just cracking jokes on the field. I thought there's some footage with Devontae Adams and his frustrations in Las Vegas that I thought was really captivating. And then you have 2 NFC North wide receivers that, are obviously we get to see twice a year throughout the season. It's definitely a good watch, but I digress. To your point, the Packers don't need a number 1 receiver. That's where I was going with that. When we look back on Rodgers and Adams last season together, we all remember that infamous play. I think I had this in my Justin Jefferson video that 30 people watched that I posted 3 weeks ago. You do not want I don't want a true number one wide receiver. I don't. If you can have what if you can spread the ball out and anybody is good enough to make the catch, and you don't have just one person that's great at making the catch, I think that I would take that 9 times out of over 10. Now we might eat my own words on this one, depending on how the season shakes out. But you hit the nail on the head, Christian, with the whole fantasy football thing. You're exactly right. I don't know if you even touch these wide receivers in fantasy football, because Reed could go off for 120 and 2 touchdowns one game and then not even have a catch the following week. And you can see it now that, Christian Watson supposedly has figured out what his hamstring issue is and has been rehabbing that and correcting that. I mean, any one of these guys could have a breakout game, and that's tight ends included, that's running backs included. I mean, you might just get one of those games where Josh Jacobs decides to run for 150 yards, and now there's no passing that happens the entire game. I don't think they need it. I don't think they need to pay a number one wide receiver, and I think that they're going to find a way under that offense, under Matt LaFleur, to find success without that.
Yeah, 100% agree. You mentioned Christian Watson's hamstring issues, and that's one thing that we were talking about, off-season changes that we forgot to talk about. So one of the biggest changes that I'm excited about is the basically completely swapping out, bringing in new strength and conditioning and medical staff. For years, I've felt like with all the injuries that the Packers have dealt with every season, in my mind, I was thinking, what is their training staff doing? Why does it seem like these guys get injured so easily and so often? So I'm very excited to see if those changes help with the injury issue, which right at the beginning of OTAs, early workouts and stuff like that, I saw some stuff about how much longer the Packers are stretching and warming up before practice starts, which if they weren't doing that before, it's a very good thing that the previous staff is gone, because that right there is going to change so much. So hopefully we don't see as many injuries. I'm very excited. That was one of the other big things I was excited about with off-season changes. And Christian Watson, yeah, he went to see a specialist. Hopefully he's figured out his hamstring issues, because I think if he's healthy, I think he could blow up. He could have a huge season if he stays healthy.
Well, and that, yeah, you're right. I mean, technically, the Packers, last time they won a Super Bowl, didn't they have like 16 guys
yeah,
were injured?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Am I remembering that correct?
Yeah, it was probably something like that.
But you're right that you want to have your playmakers out on the field, and I don't know. I've never really looked at it as though they have gotten injured more than the other NFL teams. I've heard other people say it outside of you, but I'm with you. I mean, it was probably a change that was long overdue. I think that previous strength and conditioning coach had probably, I don't know how, he'd been there a while, long enough that it was to go along with the defensive coordinator. Let's get a new face in there. Let's try some new regimens for warm-ups and cool downs. And yeah, I mean, if it's a step in the right direction to keep these guys healthy and keep a Christian Watson on the field and a Jair on defense and Eric Stokes healthy. We just paid Xavier McKinney a shit ton of money, 2 swear words. I'd say, yeah, let's figure it out. Let's get this going. I agree. That was a good off-season move as well.
Yeah.
But who cares about coaching?
Oh, right, yeah. Coaches don't do anything.
Who wakes up in the morning and gets excited about the coaches? That doesn't get me excited. Let's see here. So we talked about anything on the defensive side? Any position battles over there? Or is it pretty clear cut? Because I got one.
Oh, I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, we got.
I'll circle back around real quick with the running backs. Then there's a little bit of a delay. So, I agree. I think A.J. Dillon stays. I think those are your 3 running backs: Marshawn Lloyd, A.J. Dillon. It would have to take a mass just catastrophe for him to lose. The main thing there is, yes, he's gotten leaner, thinner. Looks like he's more of a badass than ever, Quadzilla as they call him. But they're not paying him a lot of money. I think it's isn't it like less than $2 million this year to stick around in Green Bay and play football, and that that's a low risk, high reward scenario. If we'll go down that avenue, I do think that they keep him. Emmanuel Wilson would probably be the only person else on that roster that might, give him a run for his money. But I don't think really the skill set is going to complement what we would get out of Marshawn and Jacobs. I think you kind of still need that A.J. Dillon 3rd and 1 kind of a bruiser. Never really, you don't always get that out of him, but it's nice to have the idea of that running back that can be able to pick up 1 yard when you need it.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you there. Let me head over to the defense real quick. We're at 1:01 on the recording, or excuse me, an hour 1 minute on the recording.
It's only been a minute?
We can stick around however long we want.
The time
an hour
still?
and a minute. There is an there's a player on the defense that I'm not so convinced will survive training camp, and that is Preston Smith. I am not convinced that this guy, the Packers hang on to him.
Really?
And the reason why is that, I don't think he's all that good. I think he was really good when Zadarius Smith was there, and you kind of had like the Bash brothers, and I think so much focus was put on Zadarius that Preston was able to get through and make some move. I don't have his. Hold on. What are your thoughts on that while I look up some statistics here real quick?
Surprised. That's not something that I thought would happen. I see him as a veteran leader. He was in their schedule reveal video. Did you see that?
Yeah, I know.
So,
I did see the schedule release
so that's
video.
surprising to me.
That's why they call it a hot take, Christian.
All
right.
I don't know. You're right that he's an older player in a high impact position. So and his production has gone down for sure. The other thing that goes in your favor for that take is the talent that we have in those positions. So you got Rashawn Gary. He's not going anywhere. He's, I think, really coming to his own. And then Luke Van Ness, he was a rookie last season, right?
Right.
So he, you didn't hear his name called a whole lot last season, but I think he develops into a big time pass rusher. He just has this. I don't know. When they drafted him, I got serious J.J. Watt vibes from his body type, from his. Yeah, no, I agree. And he showed flashes of that last year. So if he comes into training camp and he's blowing it out of the water, yeah, I can see him taking Preston Smith's spot and them having to part ways with him. I don't know. It's
you
something
also
that I hadn't thought about
that
before.
Captain America fellow that they drafted a few years ago.
Yeah,
what was his name? Remember his name?
I don't remember his name, honestly. He played a little bit. He's not with the Packers anymore. I can't remember where he ended up. I heard his name last season with a different team. I can't remember where he ended up, but his nickname in college was Captain America. I'm a big Captain America fan, so I thought that was awesome that the Packers drafted Captain America. But yeah, he didn't pan out to be.
So I might have to digress. I think the Packers are. I'm looking at the contract here. I think they're stuck with them, unfortunately. But I guess you kind of hit where I was going with it. I think there's enough up and coming talent around him that if they could, walk away, they could. I do think this is his last season. He's set to make. He's a cap hit of $14 million this year. He's a pretty expensive guy. Next year he'd be due $17 million, and it looks like he is signed through the 26th season, so they can get out after this season with a less of a cap hit than they depart. So Preston Smith, my hot take means absolutely nothing right now. I don't have any other hot takes. I thought that would be this is his last season. That's my hot take. Preston Smith's last season in Green Bay is this upcoming season. And I think they move on from him because they're going to have enough talent around him not to have to pay that guy. You're going to have a bunch of these second and third year guys that will fill in just fine. They're going to have to pay Quay Walker.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's very reasonable to think. Yeah, this year maybe not, but this year you may see much less playing time for him. He was out there, pretty close to every play last season, this year, maybe you don't see him on the field as much because of all the talent they have at that position. So yeah, I can definitely see that. And
That
then
could be a
yeah,
good thing.
it's something that they're going to have to consider with his performance this year and where they're at with his contract next year.
Well, on that note, I think we wrap up our first official video. If any of you have made it to the full 1 hour and 6 minutes, thank you for sticking around. I did learn something tonight, a couple things. First off, I need to get more beer. If we're going to talk for an hour, this isn't going to cut it. Did you finish yours too? Well
Oh
done.
yeah, mine's gone. And I
Second
got to
thing,
pee so bad.
and you're locked in a room.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Hey, luckily there's a bathroom in here. So,
Okay, you're going. What else do you need? You don't need anything else.
more beer.
So this is our first run. Yeah, this is our first run at doing a side by side, this format for the Pour Another side of things. So be patient with us. We're gonna definitely learn. I'm gonna learn a lot from the editing process that comes from this video on how best to put it all together and how long the video should be. Like I said at the start of this, ideally we want to be somewhere in that 45 to an hour of chat time. But if we get it down a rabbit hole, that's perfectly fine too. We'll just continue talking. But until I don't have any closing thoughts. I'm not used to doing this on the fly like this. Any closing thoughts, Christian?
No, I think this was a lot of fun. We
How do
talked
you
a
think it
lot
went?
about we talked a lot about a lot of good stuff and plenty more to come. We got training camp starting next week, so there'll be a lot to talk about.
Yeah, so next video, we're going to record, I think we're aiming for Tuesday night next week. So there should be 2 training camp or 2 practices underneath the belt. And then we'll kind of see how the news goes. I feel like that Jordan Love contract's going to be coming any day now. So maybe something happens over the weekend and we hop on and do a little 10-minute something or another Sunday night. We can post that, but we'll just kind of play it by ear. We'll keep track of the headlines. We'll talk about the news throughout the training camp, give you some insight, dive into some more of the stuff. I really want to do a schedule prediction. I think we have to nail something like that before the season starts. It just becomes that much more fun when the games are actually in front of us and to see, where we're tracking and if we actually know what we're talking about, which we don't.
Oh yeah.
News flash. We haven't. Preston Smith is staying on the roster in 2024. I just want to get that out there.
We don't claim to be experts by any means.
On that, we're going to wrap up the video. Thanks everyone for checking it out. Subscribe, of course. We'd like to see this channel get some more traction and grow. Give us some feedback. Comment down below if you want to improve Christian's lighting. We're going to set up a GoFundMe account so we can get that set up for that side of it. And thanks everyone for checking the video. We're going to wrap it up and we will see you in a couple times. Until next time, I'll see you on the internet. Thanks for watching.